This mini lesson will introduce you to an anti-bias framework for understanding the multiple dimensions and complexity of identity. In this mini lesson, you will explore the many parts that make up a person's identity, reflect on the significance of parts of identity that can be seen and those that cannot be seen, discover strategies for getting to know other people without relying on assumptions.
This mini lesson will explore the complexity of identity while learning about the many different parts of our own and others' identities. Some parts of identity can be seen just by looking at someone, but most parts of who someone is are below the surface. Let's investigate these questions. What is your identity? What do people assume or guess about your identity based on how you look? What strategies can help you understand someone's identity more?
Take a look at these people. What can you tell about a person's identity just by looking at them? What can't you tell? What do you know for certain about them based on what you see? How would you describe them if someone asked you? What about you? What do people notice when they see you? Figuring out someone's identity is more complicated than it seems.
We will be doing a similar activity to this, but this will be done using resources found on Schoology and resources that I give you.
We define identity as the qualities and beliefs that make a particular person or group different from others.
Each of us has a unique identity with many facets. Think about all the different aspects of your identity that make up who you are. How much of your identity is visible to others the moment you meet? How much may not be visible ever, or until someone learns more about you? Identity is a lot like an iceberg. Do you know what's surprising about icebergs? Only a small part of the iceberg, about 1/8 or 13%, is visible above the waterline. Similar to an iceberg, just a few parts of a person's identity are immediately visible above the waterline. Some aspects of identity are right at the waterline, where we might see a characteristic but lack absolute certainty about it based only on what we observe. That means many dimensions of a person's identity are going to be below the waterline, where we cannot immediately see them. To get more familiar with this concept, consider where you would place different parts of your own identity on the iceberg. Let's give it a try. Enter a characteristic of your identity in the box and click where you think it belongs on the iceberg. For example, if you typed black hair, you might click a spot above the waterline. If you identify as Latinx, you might believe that this identifier appears at the waterline. Think of as many facets as you can and place them above, at, or below the waterline to create a portrait of your own identity. Feel free to take a picture or screen capture of your personal identity iceberg before continuing. Then click Next when you're ready to go on. Are you surprised by how much of your identity is below the waterline? Given that identity is complex, it's easy to make assumptions about a person's identity that aren't necessarily accurate, especially at the waterline. Let's take a closer look. We might perceive aspects of identity, like race and gender, as visible and above the waterline, but these identifiers are more complicated than we think. Even when we can clearly see someone's face, skin color, body shape, and hair, it is still possible to misidentify that person based on the characteristics we observe. That's because we don't actually know how that person identifies within racial or gender categories. Can you think of a time when people made assumptions about you based on their biases, stereotypes, or a perception of your identity? How did that make you feel? Did it have a particular impact on you?
Instead of relying on assumptions or guesses, press pause, and think. When you see a person for the first time, assumptions or guesses about that person may come to your mind. Before you act on those assumptions, press pause on your thoughts. Think. Are you making a guess about the person based on how they look? Think. Is there a stereotype about a group that is coming to your mind? A stereotype is the false idea that all members of a group are the same and think and behave in the same way. Think. You are just seeing this person for the first time. What do you really know about them? Get to know this new person by asking questions that allow them to tell you who they are, so you don't have to guess. Getting to know people online can be tricky in a different way. People can show some parts of their identity and choose to conceal other parts. When you're chatting or gaming with someone, or looking at their profile or feed, press pause on your thoughts. Think. Do I know this person in real life? What do I know about them? Could some things that this person is showing be made up? Remember, anyone can create a profile, even if the information is not real. Ask an adult if you're not sure if someone's being genuine. Think. What guesses or assumptions come to mind when I look at this person's profile or feed? Interact with and get to know people online with respect and safety. Chat and comment with the goal of learning more about the person, and avoid letting your guesses or assumptions lead to negative messages. Online comments are read by real people and affect real life. If you're not sure if someone is being honest or safe online, talk to a trusted adult or report the user. Before we wrap up and share some additional resources, let's check your understanding of this lesson. Drag and drop the statement into the true or false bucket.
We will do this activity together.
Thank you for learning about the complexities of identity with us. For more on identity, explore this collection of resources for students.